In 1973, Secretariat's run to history transcended a nation divided.
A lot of Americans didn't feel very good about ourselves because it was Watergate and it was Vietnam.
Our psyche was a little bruised at that time, and this horse was a big uplifting thing for us all.
The front cover of Time magazine was Secretariat during Watergate. And I think the country just loved it because Secretariat was a true hero.
We always need sports heroes. It takes our minds off other things. Secretariat gave people sort of a scandal-proof celebrity to look at and to enjoy without the residue of messy politics.
He was the only honest thing in the country at the time. This huge, magnificent animal that wasn't tied up in scandal, wasn't tied up in money. He just ran because he loved running.
Not since Man o' War in 1920 had a horse so captivated a nation. Now the 1-10 favorite had a chance to succeed where 7 horses failed since 1948 to win the Belmont Stakes after taking the first 2 legs of the Triple Crown.
It was impossible for Citation to create the excitement that Secretariat did because television was in its infancy at the time, really. But Secretariat was a national occupation because they'd all seen him in color on television.
And he was really the first equine hero of the media age. He'd been on the covers of Sports Illustrated, Time, Newsweek.
We were all under a lot of pressure. You talk about attention. When you're on the cover of 3 national magazines, it was really hell week. It was, could I get through every day? And it was really terribly wearing. I wouldn't want to do it again.
There was a lot of cameras and a lot of people, interviewers, writers and all that, and they kept sticking mic in my face, you know, and asking me if I was nervous. And, gee, if I wasn't nervous, then I wouldn't have been normal.
We had an overwhelming request for credentials. People that had never seen a horse race that were in the newspaper business wanted to get up close and see this horse. It was really a frenzy of interest.
June 9th, the day of reckoning, broke bright and clear. By post time, millions of Secretariat fans had put their money where their hearts were, some for the first time in their lives. Of the 70,000 that overflowed the stands, a few had been at the track since sunup.
I was there at 6 o'clock in the morning. I was there all night. I fell asleep against a tree by his barn. The fittest I have ever seen a horse. His eyes were big as saucers, his nostrils were flared, he was nickering, his ears were playing, his muscles were rippling, and he's walking around on his hind legs. And I remember thinking to myself, boy, what are we going to see today?
Before the race, you could see not only what Secretariat meant to really veteran, hard-boiled, you know, step over a guy with a heart attack so they don't get shut out at the window betters, okay? But also with people who were at that track who were not gamblers, who brought their kids because it was Secretariat. This was the people's horse.
Everybody wanted to see him not only win, but do it in a way that would really be authoritative.
I'm looking at him and I'm thinking, I've never seen him walk like this before. He looks like the execution man. He's going to the gallows. He's about to dispatch somebody.
And they're off. Looks like the early lead goes to Mike Allen. Yes, Mike Allen going for the lead with Price and Prince on the outside. Secretariat away very well, has good position on the rail, and in fact is now going up with the leader. Sham
had been such a tough competitor for him in the first 2 races. You wondered, would this finally be Sham's day?
My instructions were to be very close to Secretariat from the way go.
And now it's Sham. Sham and Secretariat are right together into the first turn. Mike Allen has third behind them. Then it's Twice the Prince, and the trailer is Private Smiles as they go by the turn.
He just felt like running. That was the day he felt terrific.
I said, just leave him alone. I said, just take a long hold and let him run his own race.
Ron Turcott, he let him run. Come on, let's see what he's got. You've done the Derby, you've done the Preakness. Come on, let's see how he goes all out. How good can this guy go?
They continue down the backstretch, and that Secretariat now taking the lead.
I looked at the teletimer and saw that the horse had gone 3/4 of a mile in 1:09 and 2. which is the fastest 3/4 of a mile ever run in the Belmont Stakes. And he's leaving sham at this point.
They're moving on the turn now. For the turn at Secretariat. It looks like he's opening. The lead is increasing.
He is running and running and running. And I turned to the guy next to me and I said, he's lost a horse.
3.5. He's moving into the turn. Secretariat holding on to a large lead. Sham is second, and then it's a long way back to My Gallon and Twice a Prince.
And I'm thinking, he has gone insane. And I'm cursing him under my breath. You moron. What are you doing? You know, you're going to kill the horse. You're going to lose the Triple Crown. Don't you know how fast you're going?
Nobody knew that that was going to happen. Not the rider, not the trainer, not the owner. I think probably not the horse.
Secretariat is widening now. He is moving like a tremendous machine. Secretariat by 12. Secretariat by 14 lengths on the turn.
And he still has a 1/4 mile to go. And I'm thinking to myself, he's going to totally collapse in the stretch. He can't keep this up. And I'm asking other guys who are on the track, what are you thinking? And everybody to a man is thinking, he's going too damn fast.
Secretariat is in a position that is impossible to catch. He's into the stretch. Secretariat leads his field by 18 lengths.
Lucian said to me, oh my God, Ronnie, just don't fall off. Don't fall off.
Finally, after I turned for home, my curiosity got the best of me. I had to turn around. When I look at it, I scare myself.
They're in the stretch. Secretariat has opened a 22-length lead. He is going to be the Triple Crown winner. Here comes Secretariat to the wire. An unbelievable, an amazing performance. He hits the finish 25 lengths in front.
I believed in Pegasus that day. I mean, because I saw him. I mean, I never saw anything like that in my life. 31 lengths. I mean, think of what that. I mean, that's unbelievable. It's like they were racing on two different racetracks.
It was like the Lord was holding the reins. Secretariat was one of his creatures, and he maybe whispered to him a go, and that horse really went. It was really an almost supernatural experience. It really was.
And look at Mrs. Sweetie. She's having the time of her life.
I leaped up out of my chair at Belmont Park, shouting, we'll never see this again. And I get to the elevator to go down to the winner's circle, and I'm standing next to Pete Axtell. And he said, I used to think that the Ali Fraser fight in Madison Square Garden was the greatest thing I've ever seen. This was even greater.
Everybody was speechless. And then, when it set in, people were crying. I actually saw people crying at this event. I mean, it was such an overwhelming thing.
There were these co-eds lining the rail. And this sounds hard to believe, but I swear half of them were weeping as he went by.
The day that Secretariat won the Belmont, I went back to the barn with him, and I was standing outside, and there was probably 30, 50 people there, and they were giving him the saliva test, and I remember a woman saying, they're treating him like just another horse.
Jack Nicklaus once called me over and said, you were at the Belmont, you saw that race? And I said, yes. And he said, I was all alone in my living room, watching. And as he came down the stretch, pulling away, I applauded and I cried.
And Haywood said to him, in a brilliant moment of epiphany and insight, he said, Jack, don't you understand? He said, all of your life, in your game, you've been striving for perfection. And he said, at the end of the Belmont, you saw it.
Many people bought mutual tickets on Secretariat in the Belmont, which they never cashed. That was to be their souvenir. Because when you are in the presence of something marvelous, some little bit of it, like a piece of glitter, drops on you, and you got it. You got that ticket. Part of Secretariat's glory is with you. You didn't care about the ticket.
When you beat a track record, you normally beat it by 1/5 of a second. He knocked 2 seconds, maybe 2 1/5, off of the track record and won by 31 lengths. It was, there's no horse in the history of horse racing could have ever beaten Secretariat on that day.
I mean, it was just so devastating. It was like the 29-foot jump. It was like Tiger Woods at Masters.
His performance is right there with Will Chamberlain and Don Larson.
You're not supposed to
win majors by a dozen strokes. You're not supposed to score 100 points, and you're not supposed to win the Belmont by 31 lengths.
The desperate way in which the losers were so beaten and so battered by this horse. It was the Confederate Army staggering home after Appomattox. I mean, these are all flowery, ridiculous things, and you can say, hey, it's nothing but a horse race. I'm sorry, this horse was an athlete.